We welcome you to yet another FIP digital event titled Pharmacists Acts for Humanity, commemorating World Humanitarian Day. My name is Dalia Bajis, and at FIP I am Head of Programs and Provision, and I'm delighted to be supporting my colleagues here today and also co-moderating this session with my colleague, Mr. Robert Moss, who is the Vice President of FIP, but also really welcoming all of our esteemed speakers that are listed on the screen in front of you, who we will be excited to welcome a little bit later in the program. So welcome, everyone. Thank you so much. Before we proceed, we have a couple of logistical announcements to share with you. Please do note that this webinar is being recorded and live streamed via YouTube. The recording will be available afterwards on our website at www.events.fip.org. You're very welcome to ask questions during the panel discussion or before using the question box provided at the bottom of your screen. We also welcome any of your feedback by writing to us at webinars@fip.org. We would like to take this opportunity to, if you're not a member of FIP, to consider FIP membership to avail of the vast array of member benefits through our wonderful federation. And you can do so through the registration link shown on the screen and on our website. We would also like to bring your attention to the fact that we have a translation feature on Zoom that you're welcome to avail of. The stepwise approach is on the slide. You're able to do this by turning on captions and then moving on to enabling the translation toggle. Choose your preferred language under my caption language, and you can follow this on the screen here. In addition, we do have an extra feature today, and that is we have live translation to Turkish, and there is a button at the bottom of your screen that you can click on to enable this feature as well. Today, we mark World Humanitarian Day, a time to honor those who step into crisis to help others and to stand with the millions of people whose lives hang in the balance. As the United Nations Secretary General reminded us just a couple of hours ago in a special statement today, humanitarian workers are the last lifeline, and I quote, for over 300 million people caught in conflict or disaster. Yet this lifeline is under threat. Funding is drying up. Attacks on aid workers are at the record high, with at least 390 humanitarians killed just last year alone, from Gaza to Sudan to Myanmar and beyond. International law is clear. Humanitarians must be respected and protected, and I quote. As we pay tribute today to humanitarian workers, including healthcare professionals, we must also not forget the communities and ordinary people who in times of conflict and disaster find themselves stepping forward, offering shelter, sharing food, providing care, and supporting one another when no one else is there. Their courage and compassion are at the heart of what it means to act for humanity. As FIP, we stand alongside the humanitarian community. Pharmacists and pharmaceutical scientists play a vital role in crisis, ensuring access to medicines and essential supplies, supporting displaced populations, and upholding the right to health, even in the most difficult circumstances. At FIP, we choose the word humanity to describe our humanitarian program, Humanity RX, because it reflects both our profession's purpose and our shared responsibility to protect life and dignity. Through Humanity RX, which you will hear about a little later on from my colleague Ruben, we are working to strengthen pharmacy's role in humanitarian response, that our members' voices are heard, and where possible, ensuring medicines and pharmaceutical expertise reach those who need it the most. Before I give the floor to my colleague, Mr. Moss, our Bureau Liaison, to say a few words, I will now walk you through the learning objectives for this webinar and today's program. We hope that by the end of this session, our participants and listeners are able to recognize the diverse roles pharmacists play in humanitarian settings, including emergency response, public health, and direct patient care during crisis. Understand the impact of pharmacy-led interventions on access to essential medicines and the resilience in vulnerable and displaced populations. identify practical ways in which pharmacists and pharmacy organizations can engage in or support humanitarian efforts, both locally and globally, in line with the principles of humanitarian aid and global solidarity. We have an exciting program lined up for you today, supported, like I said, by a esteemed lineup of speakers. We will start with welcoming remarks from our Bureau liaison and also introduction to the different speakers. But we will start with a keynote from the United Nations by Gemma Connell. We also have another keynote from the Humanitarian Resilience Advisor Group at FIP, Mr. Lucas Ercolin. We have a third keynote from a recorded message from the Military and Emergency Pharmacy section by Mr. Sylvain Grenier. We also have a presentation by Ruben Vegas, my colleague who manages the FIP Humanity RX program. Then we will hear country-specific examples from India, from Mr. Subhash Mandal, from Lebanon by Dr. Luna El-Bizri, from South Africa, from Dr. Sham Moodley. And then we will wrap up by Q&A session and some panel discussion before we conclude and wrap up. So without any further ado, I really would like to sincerely welcome our dear colleague, Mr. Robert Moss, who is the Vice President of FIP, who is also a hospital pharmacist and based in the Netherlands. Welcome, Rob. The floor is yours. Thank you for being with us.
Great. Thank you, Dalia, and thank you for your beautiful words for the introduction for this, I think, very important and timely webinar digital event that we're having now. You've mentioned it. It is World Humanitarian Day, and this is a day which is held every year at the 19th of August to pay tribute to humanitarian workers killed and injured in the course of their work. And just that first part, I would like to have a moment of silence from all of us to remember these people who gave their lives for this important and unselfish work that they were doing. But it is not just to remember, it's also to look forward. And it is to honor all the people who help, all the health workers and aid workers who continue to provide life-saving support and protection to the people most in need. This year's theme of the World Humanitarian Day is strengthening global solidarity and empowering local communities. And I think our program actually brings this forward. We will be starting, as Dalia mentioned, from the high-level United Nations, then from what is FIP doing, and going down to what are people doing on the floor, what are they doing, and what can we learn from them, and how can we learn from you what was needed. So therefore, I'm more than honored to start the webinar, to moderate it, and introduce the first speaker, who is Gemma Connell, and she's the chief of the United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs in Switzerland. Gemma, please, are you? Yes, you are there. Thank you very much. And please, can I give you the floor?
Thank you so much, Robert, and it's a privilege to be with you all. I just want to check if I'm presenting from my side or if the FIP. Fantastic. I see the presentation there. So friends and colleagues, thank you so much for inviting us to be with you today. And thank you so much for holding this event on World Humanitarian Day. As humanitarians, we often speak about trying to create a movement of humanity around the world. And your work as pharmacists, as scientists, and coming together today to mark World Humanitarian Day, I believe is emblematic of the fact that we are indeed building that movement. Next slide, please. So just before I dive into World Humanitarian Day, I wanted to quickly introduce you to the organization that I work for, the Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs at the United Nations. And we work around the world, no matter where the crises hit, no matter how risky it is, in order to ensure that people who are hit by disasters, by conflict, by crises, have the assistance and the life-sustaining and life-saving support that they require. So we talk with anyone we need to in order to get assistance across front lines, and we also advocate globally in the hallways of power to push for peace, and as you'll hear today, also to push for protection of our sister and brother humanitarian aid workers around the world. On the ground, we coordinate aid, we make sure that there's no duplication in response, and we advocate for people in need. We try and bring the voices of people hit by crises to the global stage, and we try and ensure that responses are informed by what people say they need. We work with local communities and frontline responders. This is a real point of pride for us, that around the world, wherever we are, our first connection is to the community and to what they are telling us are their priorities, their preferences, their capacities, but also to the local organizations and community-led responses, because we know whenever a crisis hits, and I'll come back to this later with respect to attacks against aid workers, it is people from the communities that are impacted by the crisis who are the first to respond to that crisis. We mobilize funds, we raise awareness, and we make humanitarian action happen around the world. Next slide, please. One of the things that I wanted to share with you today, because today is both an incredibly sad day for the humanitarian community, commemorating our colleagues who have lost their lives in the service of humanity, but it's also a day when we recall why our colleagues take those risks. And last year, even in the face of such extreme challenges, we as humanitarians managed globally to reach over 116 million people in 77 countries through coordinated response plans with life-saving, life-sustaining assistance to ensure that we were a lifeline in a time of crisis, so that those people could get back on their feet and move into a much better future. Next slide, please. Right now, however, we are facing the biggest funding crunch of our lifetime as humanitarian actors. Multiple major donors globally have dropped the amount that they are delivering for humanitarian assistance, and this means that we have been forced to make impossible decisions, colleagues. We've been forced to choose between providing children with treatment for malnutrition or delivering shelter assistance to their families. We've been forced to choose between ensuring that survivors of gender-based violence have the care and support that they need and delivering food assistance to communities. These are the types of decisions that humanitarians are having to take every day in this moment, because the global funding for humanitarian action has dropped. Right now, we are 18% funded against our global appeal, and that is 40% less than we had received at the same time last year. And when I come onto World Humanitarian Day, we are being attacked not just physically, but also the very spirit of the work that we do, the spirit of humanity that we bring to communities in crisis around the world. The funding and the support for that has dropped dramatically in these last 12 months. Next slide, please. So World Humanitarian Day. That's why you've invited me here. And again, we're truly honored that you reached out to have us be present. World Humanitarian Day marks the 19th of August every year. It was created off of the back of the horrifying attack on the Canal Hotel in Baghdad 22 years ago, 22 years ago today. It is a moment when we take stock of the lives that have been lost in the service of humanity. And the horrifying reality, colleagues, is that as we sit here today, these attacks are more frequent, they are more deadly, and they are more severe than we could even have imagined when World Humanitarian Day was created. We are having today as a moment collectively to sound an urgent alarm. We're underfunded. You just heard me speak to that. We're overstretched. Our colleagues globally are spending every minute of every day trying to eke out those last remaining resources to reach people in need. And most critically, we are under attack. And so today, we call on people, including yourselves, your networks, your communities, to act for humanity. And it's not just a hashtag. It cannot just be a hashtag. This is about turning the global outrage that we feel when humanitarians who are delivering vital life-saving assistance are attacked, are killed, are maimed, are injured, are wounded, are detained. It's turning that outrage into action. It's calling for the protection of humanitarians and the civilians who we serve. Anytime we are in danger, it's because the civilians who we exist to support are in danger themselves. Civilians face the first danger. We face danger because we're there with them. We're calling on all actors globally to uphold international humanitarian law, and we're calling for funding the lifelines of humanitarian support that are right now being cut. Next slide, please. So today you come together with us in a moment when we are releasing truly shocking data. We partner with the Aid Worker Security Report through our partnership with an organization called Humanitarian Outcomes each year to present the latest data on attacks against aid workers. And colleagues, the latest data should stop all of us in our tracks, because what it shows is that last year, 383 of our colleagues, aid workers around the world, were killed in the line of duty, working to support the communities that they serve. It shows that beyond those who were killed, over 300 more colleagues were wounded, over 100 colleagues were kidnapped, and many more were detained or arrested. And the critical thing to acknowledge here is that the vast majority of those who have been killed, who have been wounded, who have been detained, are local aid workers serving their own communities. It is very rare for international aid workers to be killed. It does happen, and it's horrifying, but we need to be equally outraged every time an aid worker who comes from a community is killed serving that community. We know, for example, that killings of international aid workers receive hundreds of times more media coverage than the killing of local aid workers, but those aid workers are equal to any one of us who is an aid worker on the ground, and our outrage whenever an aid worker is killed needs to be equal, no matter who they are, no matter where they come from, because what defines them, what defines us, is that we are acting for humanity. And I would just share with you a very personal story. I was at an event this morning to mark World Humanitarian Day. It's a difficult day for me, as it is for so many aid workers. And I arrived at the event hosted by the International Federation of the Red Crescent, and they had images on the wall of aid workers killed serving their communities. And one of those aid workers was a woman named Hidayah. She was a Palestinian woman who worked in Gaza, and I served in Gaza at the beginning of the current war. I was there in December 2023 and January 2024. Hidayah was one of the most passionate, incredible, phenomenal aid workers that I have ever met on the ground with her community, displaced herself, hungry herself, but showing up every day to coordinate assistance for thousands of displaced people. And just weeks after I left Gaza, she was killed. She was killed standing with her community in front of people who were displaced. And seeing her image this morning was a reminder to me of the stakes that we talk about on World Humanitarian Day. We talk about women like Hidayah. We talk about men who are on the front lines of conflict worldwide, giving themselves, putting themselves at risk for their communities. So when we speak about acting for humanity, that's what we speak for. It's standing with those colleagues, and it's saying that no one, no matter who they are, where they're from, no one around the world should ever be killed, wounded, or detained for serving our fellow humans. That's what World Humanitarian Day is about. So thank you so much again for having us. It's a true privilege. And when we talk about building a movement, it's having colleagues and friends such as yourselves around the world stand up for humanity, demanding an end to attacks against aid workers, and demanding for protection for the civilians we serve. Thank you so much for having me with you, and back to you, Robert.
Well, Gemma, it is really truly touching the way you've told, and it shows why it's important. I'm so glad that we could have you on the call to have this firsthand presentation and showing the importance of what everybody is doing. But I'm really touched by the way you're saying that it's the local people who don't get all the attention that are also the ones that really should be acting. So Act for Humanity, indeed, it's a great call. Thank you so much for your presentation. So we'll go on. I notice I'm even struggling to go on, but this is a webinar, so we're going on. But so what are we doing as an FIP? One of the organizations of the groups that we have within FIP is the Humanitarian Resilience Advisory Group, chaired and co-chaired by Lucas and me. And he's from Brazil, and he will give a presentation on the work of what's going on within FIP and the Humanitarian Resilience Advisory Group. Lucas, please, can I give you the floor?
Thank you very much, Rob. So hello, everyone. Thanks for coming to this session, to this webinar today. My name is Lucas, and I'm one of the co-chairs for the Humanitarian Advisory Group. And next slide, I want to, here is a little about me. I work as a humanitarian for IDA Foundation, but I have been before also in the field, like our colleague Yema. So I have been to Ukraine, to Yemen, and also to Iraq before, which is the country that brings us to this day today. And next slide, Rob. When I was preparing for this presentation, we have this question, right? Who are the humanitarian pharmacists? When you put information online or you try to Google and try to find for humanitarians, you find many pictures, but especially for those working on the front line and working in direct contact on the most difficult parts. But it's broad where the pharmacists are. The humanitarian work is not only there in that final moment, but the entire supply chain, the people who are recruiting, the administration, making this a much wider group of people. So here we have two pictures, right? So from MSF from Nigeria, we have from also from Ukraine with Atlas. Can you go to the next slide? And also we can see, so as our colleague just said, we had some lowering on the funding for humanitarians. Some of them, you can see here, the people who work with this, or a little different part, or getting the shippers and trying to do all the supply chain to bring the things from the funding part, but also those who work from donations, right? Such as MSF, making this work of the humanitarian much broader and including so much people. And I try to bring you some faces before trying to make you think a little about the globe and the impact. Next slide, please. I prepared this from our friends from OCHA on the Relief web, of course. What is going on in the world today? So considering the time of the year now, August, mid-August, we can see this is on the natural level of emergencies that are ongoing. And as usual, the most impactful one are the floods that are ongoing on different places of the world. And when you have floods, you also have problems on the health, especially with cholera and other waterborne diseases. On top of it, you also see other problems with the different icons on this map, and they are all ongoing. So you also have problems with shelter. You also have problems with toxic things on the environment, and also on other types of natural disasters. Also recently, we heard about the tsunami and also the earthquake volcanoes on the Russian part of the world. These all impact us. And it's always important to bring this back that this situation with the natural emergencies, they are growing. They're growing worldwide, and things tend to happen more often with more intensity and in places that never had before. So this is the face of today, basically, on what is going on for natural disasters. But the future only shows that this tends to become worse and impact more people. And countries that you don't see here today, they might be included in the future, showing that at some extent the humanitarian support needs to increase and not to go down on funding and what is needed to make it happen, as our colleague from OCHA said. But we can go further to think about emergencies because those are just the natural ones. If you go to the next slide, here is a very simplified way to see all human-made disasters. specifically of conflicts and unrest that we see across the world. These are also growing on difficulty, on intensity, and where it impacts. You may have the chance to see on the news that the investment for humanitarian is lowering, but at the same time, the investment on war and the other conflicts across the world are increasing, and are increasing from multiple countries, with a pressure to increase more on the funds that will be used not to save lives, but to kill lives. So they are growing, and this impact probably put many here of you, which puts me also on some questions about what will be the future looking like. With more natural disasters and more war, how can we go to a world with peace and where everyone can develop and grow and become something nice for the world, right? But you said, okay, but we have the health professionals who can go there and support, right? But if you think about the next image on the next slide, you see a little of what our colleagues said from Acha, that health is under attack. FIP 2 years ago, one of the first time that we started to engage with a humanitarian was exactly on this point, the attacks to healthcare. These are only the attacks to healthcare from 2024 to today. And this is a much broader way to see the attacks that we have, but you can see each each yellow block is a different place impacted, and some places are more, and places are less. And here we see almost 5,000 incidents and almost 1,200 fatalities. But these blocks are not only about the fatalities. They include the destruction of buildings, for example, destruction of our hospitals or attack to other health facilities. We also have attacks to the supply chain sometimes, and includes more points. And when we think about the wars that exist today and are more popular and come more to their mind, it's easy. You look to the country and you can see the pinpoint that the attack, the conflicts, and the health, the natural emergencies, somehow they all get together in this problem that is the humanitarian needs on the world, and the humanitarian needs are increasing. And just to add something else on the past presentation for the next slide. For me, as a Brazilian, I was very, very young. I was not even the university at this time, but for Brazil, we have some historic and some people who are humanitarians or who are humanitarians. And on the case of the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights in 2023 in Baghdad was one of those. The day today is remembered because of this suicide rocket bombing that caused 23 fatalities and over 100 wounded in Baghdad. We remember those who pass away while provide aid, but also is a chance for us to think about the work that the humanitarians do, going to those most difficult places in the world, most intense, most critical, and most dangerous. Is a tough work, and is a professional work. So here, for us as FIP, it's something that we always have to talk. When people think about humanitarian, even as pharmacists, we tend to think about voluntary work, but this is also professional work, which we have me, we have our Acha colleague, and we have also the others who will tell you today on how it's part of the role of the pharmacist, the professional role, to be able to support humanity and to bring health to everyone. That's it for me today. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Lucas. I'm having difficulty turning on my. Thank you very much for your talk and showing the picture of, well, where do we fit in as pharmacists? And now for the next presentation, please could I have the next slide? Yeah. We will not have Sylvain here personally because he could not make this. He is away and not available. But we will have a video recording by Sylvain, who is the president of the FIP Military and Emergency Pharmacy section, who's always had humanitarian side advocated within FIP. So without further, he's from Canada, and without further ado, I would like to have the recording started.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. I'm Dr. Sylvain Grenier, President of the Military and Emergency Pharmacy section of the FIP. Today, on World Humanitarian Day, we gather to honor the spirit of compassion, courage, and selflessness that drives people to serve others, often in the most challenging condition. Courage because, as we sadly see on the news, humanitarian workers continue to be targets, and this trend seems to be getting worse and worse. As pharmacists, our role goes far beyond dispensing medicine. We are gatekeepers of health, educators, advocates, and often the most accessible point of care in communities around the world. In crisis, whether it's a natural disaster, a war zone, or a pandemic, pharmacists are often on the front lines, ensuring continuity of care, managing scarce resources, and providing vital health information. But acting for humanity is not only about emergency responses. It's also about daily decisions, providing care with empathy, ensuring access to life-saving medication for underserved population, and standing up against health inequities. MEPS leverage and focuses on the common areas of practice between military and emergency pharmacy practice. We provide a forum for exchange, and we strive to advance military and emergency pharmacy globally. So let's stand tall in our role. Let's amplify our voices, extend our reach, and commit to healing, to helping, to humanity. Thank you very much, and have a good seminar.
Well, thank you so much, Sylvain, for that presentation and showing the importance of MEPS and the role that it has played within FIP to make the humanitarian RX program sort of possible. So it leads immediately, what is FIP doing now? And I'm very glad to have Ruben Viegas here on the call. He is the Humanitarian and Sustainability Program Manager for FIP, based in the Netherlands. And please, Ruben, please could you start your presentation?
Thank you so much, Rob, for the introduction. Hello, everyone. I'm going to present you briefly what FIP is doing on the humanitarian space through the humanitarian program. We call it the Humanity RX program, as it is our prescription to the world. So it's our, how can pharmacy add a little bit to what's happening in the global humanitarian setting that is varied and has a lot full of health professionals, but also social workers. So it's a very broad area. So what can we as pharmacy bring to support our colleagues, pharmacists, pharmaceutical scientists, and pharmacy teams in crisis and disaster situations? And this program has been growing in the past years because, unfortunately, as colleagues mentioned before, we also have more and more disaster situations happening across the globe. And of course, I could not skip mentioning our FIP development goals, especially goal 18, that is access to medicines, devices, and services, as the main goal that links to the FIP humanitarian program. Pharmacists are essential in all the supply chain, as Lucas said, in all the processes that leads to ensuring access to medicines, devices, and services. So this is one of the main FIP development goals linking to this program. We have a webpage that you can access. It's humanitarian.fip.org, and there you can find a bit of a summary of the different activities and resources, internal but also external. So this page is a hub where all the resources that we can collect and reproduce are available for colleagues across the globe can access on this specific page. An example is a couple of policy documents. So we have an FIP statement of policy on the role of pharmacists in disaster and emergency management that also highlights how different sectors can be involved in humanitarian situations, but also our commitment that was presented in our FIP Congress in 2022 in Seville, Spain, where FIP committed to increase humanitarian support in crisis and disasters, making this a priority program for FIP today. So today, this is one of the priority programs for FIP and has been so in the past few years. A little bit on the roles of pharmacists. So we know that in humanitarian settings, colleagues can play a diversity of roles, including medication management, also patient care and clinical support. Sometimes they're also involved in public health initiatives together with other healthcare professionals and colleagues. But also we've been looking also at disaster preparedness and response, especially in sharing good practices between our members. There's also the point of quality assurance and also training and capacity building. So there are different roles that pharmacists can have, and we will hear later how specific countries have been responding to some situations and have played some of these roles. Examples of collaboration and engagement: we have collaborations with some associations like Direct Relief, but we also have Certificate or Advanced Studies. It's a program in medicines and medical devices that is a program that has the FIP seal, which is part of our provision program. So we're also looking into other programs or professional development opportunities for colleagues in the area, in the humanitarian settings. And then we also have a partnership with Medicines 2 initiative led by our member organizations. And because FIP is a members-led association, what we try to do is, together with our members, to advocate for needs and raise awareness of crisis, also have a bit of a network role and facilitate collaborations and partnerships. So FIP is a place where people can connect, learn from each other, hold duty of care meetings. So when we know there's a disaster, we reach out to our members and say that we are available to support as needed. And as I said before, in our page, we have a variety of resources and digital events such as this one. Just before I close, a couple of resources that have been recently launched this week today. So we have a Coffee with FIP. This is a podcast that is available in this QR code. So you can see the topic is vaccine access in emergencies, how pharmacists step in. And we have a conversation with the colleagues that are on the screen. So feel free to listen to the podcast. It's audio only, so you can also have it in your earphones while you have a coffee or you go for a walk. And we also have a report that is entitled Pharmacy's Global Response to Emergency and Disasters, Country Examples. And here we collected a few examples from countries on different disaster emergency situations, and we'll be collecting more in the future. So we want to learn from colleagues what they have been doing on their countries, on their examples, so we can also share with each other these examples and we can learn from each other. And if you have any other questions, so I'm managing the humanitarian program, but I'm also Dalia, the moderator for this event, which is head of program and divisions and provision, is also supporting this work. So if you have questions, you have our contacts, but also the general contact at humanitarian@fip.org. And I think that's it. Thank you so much. Back to you, Rob.
Great. Thank you very much, Ruben, for showing what FIP's initiatives here are and how things are sort of streamlined. Because as we all know, in humanitarian situations, it's not about offering, but it's about seeing what is needed. And this is what FIP is trying to do. If an emergency happens or something happens that aid workers has to come in, it is about what are the local needs. So I very much appreciate the way this webinar is set up now, because this is exactly what happened. It's about the people who are on the floor really doing the work and well, being the humanitarian side at the side at the affected places. So after having seen the the UN side, the FIP, what are we doing? We will have 3 examples of national organizations or people from certain countries that will show how they have dealt with specific situations that required humanitarian aid. So first, let me welcome Professor Subhash Mandal, who is the National Honorary General Secretary of the Indian Pharmaceutical Association, and to share some examples from India that he has encountered. Thank you very much, Subhash.
Hello. Hello. Please allow me.
We can hear you. Yeah.
Yeah. Allow me to make my camera on. Hello.
We can hear you, Mr. Subhash.
We can hear you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
Thank
we
you.
can hear you.
We cannot see you, but if you're struggling with the... Oh, now we can see you. Okay, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Robert, for your kind introduction. Myself, Dr. Subhash Mandal, Honorary Secretary of Indian Pharmaceutical Association. I would like to thank the FIP for giving us this opportunity to be with you today. And I want to extend my happy World Humanitarian Day to all of you. My slide, please. Hello.
Can you see the slides, Mr. Subhash? Can you hear me?
Just a moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm hearing you.
Excellent. We see the first slide, which is
Yes.
titled Background.
So thank you. Next slide, please. Hello. Next slide, please.
Yeah, we're on the tsunami relief.
I'm not finding my slide.
We're in control
Hello.
of your slides. We are in control of your slides. We are progressing them for you.
Yeah, next one, please.
The tsunami relief and earthquake relief, or the one before?
No, I'm not finding. Okay, okay. Thank you. Thank you. Please, the earlier slide, please. Yeah. My association, Indian Pharmaceutical Association, is engaged in humanitarian support since its inception in 1939, and we have good network through its 20 state branches and more than 50 local branches in different cities around the country. We are having manpower of more than 15,000 members and having collaboration with several professional organizations, community groups, government agencies, and local government. We are always working in the arena of humanitarian support during different natural disasters like cyclone, flood, earthquake, drought, COVID-19, etc. Here I will present some of our efforts in humanitarian support to the people affected by natural disaster in India and other countries. Next one, please. Yeah, we have extended our support to the people who are affected by tsunami and earthquake in different occasions. In 2004, you are aware that the world experienced one of the most devastating disasters when the Indian Ocean tsunami struck with unprecedented tsunami claiming around more than 2 lakh people and wreaking havoc on 14 countries. India also hit, and especially in the area of Sundarban area of West Bengal. We from Indian Pharmaceutical Association come up with help to the devastated tsunami victims. We donated some fund to the Chief Minister of Government of West Bengal, and this effort was really appreciated in different newspapers and six of the television channel. They appreciated our effort. And next occasion, that is the Nepal earthquake in 2015, when it killed more than 8,000 people, injured more than 21,000 across the countries like Nepal, India, and China and Bangladesh. And responding to the appeal from a member of Nepal Pharmacy Council, we from Indian Pharmaceutical Association, we have collected some medicines from medicine manufacturer in India and sent medicines with the help of Deputy Consulate General of Nepal for running health camps for the treatment of earthquake victims in Nepal. Next one, please. Yes, we also extended our support in different occasions where people were affected by cyclone, and it actually affected their life. They were displaced from their place. They used to stay in the temporary made different shelters, and we from IPA, we have collected different, dress materials, tarpaulins, blankets, food, and we also dispense essential medicines through our local doctors and the pharmacists who are actually serving at that area in different hospitals as well as the community pharmacies. Similarly, in case of Amphan, which happened in 2020, we also extended our help by providing the relief material to the person who were affected in that area. And we also set up medical camps with the help of some local doctors and our colleague pharmacists who are working there, and the local government who also supported our effort. And the third occasion, the Jaws was released in 2021 when Jaws cyclone caused havoc in different districts of West Bengal, made people homeless. People does not have their food, clothes, and drinking water. With the pharmacists from India Pharmaceutical Association, jointly with IP Bengal Pharma Healthcare Trust, we have supplied relief material to the affected people in different areas of Sundarban. We also supported by organizing one health camp in the island and provided treatment to the affected people with the help of other stakeholders and the local government. We also, next one please. These are all different natural occasions, and here is a specific example of COVID-19. We all pharmacists, we supported to maintain the supply chain. When there was a lockdown at the initial phase, the supply chain was totally devastated, and we, the pharmacists from different sectors, starting from manufacturing pharmacists to regulatory, hospital, and community pharmacists, we have supported the healthcare services. When in the earlier phase, no healthcare professionals were available to support the patient. In that situation, the pharmacists, especially in the community areas, they have continued their services from their community pharmacies and extended their help by providing medicines as well as giving the healthcare counseling. And hospital pharmacists all also came out from their classical area of work in the hospital. They also engaged themselves in case of serving in quarantine centers, safe homes, managing COVID testing centers, etc. So there is a change of mode of activity of the pharmacist during this area, and this is now the normal situation. In case of COVID, community pharmacists, they also extended the help during that time to manage the supply chain, and as a result, two different trends has been set up: the increasing use of telemedicine, telepharmacies, and home deliveries. And as a result, we have lost some of our colleagues, pharmacists, who were working in that time during the pandemics, and we have supported their family. We stand with the family, and we showed homage in the memory of our colleagues who lost their life during the COVID, and we have published one insertion in daily newspaper to show their homage. So next one, please. Now I want to conclude my presentation. The pharmacists are concerned with the humanitarian responsibility to the society besides their professional duties. They are proactive to serve the society during natural disaster. Sorry. Presently in India, they don't have formal training, but they are working with their experience, and IPA is in the process of developing competencies in humanitarian support. So with this, I conclude my presentation. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you very much.
For your interesting presentation, Mr. Mandal.
Thank you.
And it shows that national organizations can play a large role. And it's great to see that India already has a long tradition of looking not just within the own borders, but looking more widely and setting up systems to help there. So thank you very much, and congratulations to the Indian Pharmaceutical Association. Next, we have a story from Lebanon. We have Luna El-Bizri. She is a dear colleague of mine, and I would say a friend of mine. And she's founder and manager of Luna Farm, living in Lebanon. And she will tell us about examples of what happened in Lebanon. Luna, please, could I give you the floor?
Thank you very much, Robert. So in 2024, Lebanon was under fire. Next slide, please. So what was the situation exactly? From October 2023 to 2024, the attacks, as you can see on the map, were concentrated on the south area, on the border regions. And that's why we started to see these displaced people internally that moving from these areas to other areas that are more secure. But starting September 2024, all Lebanon was under fire and attacks escalated, targeting many regions. We can see that only few regions were secured. Next slide, please. So what about the public health situation that was going on? First, you have to know that it's not only like we are seeing in this map, 9,000 were internally displaced. We reached at the end of the war, 1,200,000 people were internally displaced, beside others that fled outside the country. So you can see that almost 1/4 of the total population was displaced, and this is a huge. You can see that almost 200 shelters were open, like schools, like other shelters. And I have to mention that people not only were staying in these schools, these public schools where shelters were prepared, that we can find people were staying with their friends, with their colleagues, with their families, other members' families. We could see, for instance, in one apartment, almost 25 to 30 people living there. And this is what we have seen during the war. For instance, in the community pharmacy that I was running, each apartment almost had 30 people that were displaced. So what was the level of the risk that we had as main threats? As you can see, the red is the very high risk, the yellow is the high risk. So we were at extreme high risk, especially for the trauma and injuries, of course, but also for the mental health, because seeing the bombs, flooding, living in a bad condition, even those who were lucky enough to be in apartments were feeling so bad because they were leaving their country, their regions, their home, everything they were working on, and they living in another area where maybe cultural differences were there, they were feeling lonely, etc. For the non-communicable diseases, the maternal and neonatal health, cholera, malnutrition, measles, we were at high risk. Next slide, please. How about the level of emergency during this conflict? We were grading number 3. It is the highest level of emergency according to the WHO's grading system. What does it mean? It means that we requires a full organization-wide response. And usually, in a good country, these exceed the capacity of national authorities to manage. So how about Lebanon, a country that is hit by a severe ongoing economic crisis, that had different crises before, especially the biggest blast ever in 2020. So you can understand the pressure that was on the health system, on the government, and on the society. Next slide, please. Nevertheless, what we can say that this time, if we compare it to the Beirut blast in 2020, the Ministry of Public Health was by far well prepared compared. Yes, there were some deficits, but it was okay because we were really prepared. The Ministry of Public Health divided the interventions into two parts. The first one at the primary level care, and the second one at the hospital care. So, for instance, if we go back to the table of the main threats, the trauma and injuries, the primary healthcare centers who were accredited and by the Ministry of Public Health, and by that I mean that were affiliated to the Ministry of Public Health, they were designed to manage mild emergencies such as providing, for instance, basic wound care and respiratory symptoms. As for the hospitals, they had before, so they were prepared since the start of the war, when we were at the border, as you have seen in the first slide, they had the emergency response training. So all hospital staffs, all healthcare workers working in hospital had this emergency response training, whether is it a public or a private hospital. And they were well equipped in medications and life-saving instruments. So the hospital were prepared to receive these huge numbers of people that needed help. For the mental health risk, the new thing that the government has done is the launch of the National Mental Health Strategy for Lebanon from 2024 to 2030, and they had a free hotline to help people. For the non-communicable diseases, again, at the primary level, the primary healthcare centers were providing essential health services to both the displaced and the community, while in the hospital, we were accommodating to receive more people that needed, for instance, dialysis or the chemotherapy treatment that usually were receiving these services in their regions. Next slide, please. For the maternal and neonatal health, we didn't want to have the mistake that happened during the COVID, where we had an interruption in the services of immunization and vaccination. And this time, the Ministry of Public Health was really assuring that the provision of essential health services to both displaced and host community continue smoothly with no interruption. And this was done because the primary healthcare centers have their own e-medical record that will help them to manage the patients that were enrolled in this program. For the cholera and acute watery diarrhea, you don't have to forget that shelters were overcrowded. Remember, 1/4 of the population was internally displaced. So you can understand how people were living in these shelters, and they were not well equipped to accommodate the increasing number of displaced people. So in 16th of October 2024, we had the first case of cholera confirmed, but again, fastly, the Ministry of Public Health acted, and there were a proactive campaign to vaccinate against cholera amid the conflict that we had. Next slide, please. How about pharmacists? What pharmacists did during this time? Well, the pharmacists, especially the community pharmacists, thanking, of course, the hospital pharmacists, but community pharmacists have done huge efforts. They first serve people within their community pharmacies, but also they went outside their community pharmacy to serve community and serve these displaced people in their shelters. And what they have done, for instance, for the mental health risk, First, they refer the people that really were distressed and depressed to the services of Ministry of Public Health that are free. Of course, do not forget that those are internal displaced people. They are refugees. They are not working. They don't have money. So they need free services. So first, they refer it for the hotline and the services of the Ministry of Public Health. Second, these people were angry. They were depressed. They were under stress. They didn't find their medication. They didn't understand what are the differences. They had their own culture and their own way to talk. So really, pharmacists served them, supported them with respect, respect to their cultural sensitivity, with empathy, which is very important, because it's not only delivering these medication, but also you have to show empathy for those people. And this is what happened all along the area that were safer and they were receiving these displaced people. For the non-communicable diseases, besides serving them and trying to find substitute to their medications, for instance, the generic substitutes or other, there were some cooperation for people that were receiving, let's say, a treatment for their cancer patients or diseases such as catastrophic conditions. So the coordination was between the Ministry of Public Health and the community pharmacists, and they were tracking through a system called MediTrack these patients and delivering their medication wherever they are. If they are in Beirut, if they are in the north, thanks to this coordination with the Ministry of Health. So there were no interruption for these patients for their essential medications, such as for the cancer. For the material and neonatal health, unfortunately, we had a little bit of shortage, but even though we tried to ensure vaccines, and if not, we tried to refer these patients to primary healthcare centers. We also not only try to work with the government, we also try to work with the civil society, with the NGOs and other pharmaceutical companies to distribute free of charge milk formulas or essential medications. And this is what happened during the conflict. Thank you very much.
Thank you very, very much for this outstanding presentation, Luna. And I think it's great to see that although it took a big disaster, but to see a country being more and more prepared for emergencies and then being able to respond in a resilient way. And I think it's very interesting to see how you really touch upon displaced and host communities, that it is the setting that sets the scene, that you're able to respond to dwelling people and not just set up certain spotted areas, but integrate them in the whole system. So it's really inspiring to hear how Lebanon has taken this forward and the role that pharmacists are playing there. So thank you very much, Luna, for your presentation. And as a last speaker, we have Sham Mudley, who's a pharmacist of the Pharmaceutical Society of South Africa and the Independent Community Pharmacy Association of South Africa. And we're really happy to have you on the webinar to share some of the examples from South Africa. So Sham, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Robert, and thanks to FIP for this invitation to present. I've really chosen two projects because of, I think, the uniqueness of the project and maybe something that other countries could possibly look at. The first is this project that exists on a healthcare train. It's probably the only train in the world that moves around the country providing healthcare services. I tried to Google it and I couldn't find another project like this. So that's why I've chosen this as the first one. It's really a unique way of taking humanitarian aid to areas of need through the country to where services are required. And this really travels into the deep rural areas to provide this service. So it's called Pilo Pepa, and in the local language, it means good, clean health. Very simple, but very effective. You can see in these pictures, this is a train that's provided by our national train services, Transnet, supported by some of the pharma companies that provide the infrastructure for it to exist. It runs for 9 months of the year continuously. It has quite a number of staff, and I'll talk about that. And it provides various services. You can see the clinic service in the corner there. You can see the pharmacy team with that entire compartment, including a waiting area in the next coach being the pharmacy itself. And they provide minor surgery on the go and multiple other complex healthcare services, and it's done with a multidisciplinary team, and that's really important because, as you will see, it's part of our training program as well. The next slide, please. So the train actually started post-democracy in South Africa in 1994, so it's probably one of our first legacies post-apartheid. It started with really 3 tiny coaches that ran across the country, and since then it has added another 2 19-coach trains traveling to some 70 remote communities every year. On the train itself, there's 20 resident staff, including pharmacy personnel, and it's supported each year by link into all of the universities with the different healthcare professionals, part of their training program. And these student volunteers actually live on the train for around 2 weeks together in this as a consolidated healthcare team from different disciplines. So the train so far has helped some 20,000 student doctors, pharmacists, and nurses since its first journey in 1994. And it averages over 375,000 patients a year, issuing over 68,000 prescriptions. Staff have dispensed medication to over 3 million patients, provided health screening for over 2 million people, and have provided healthcare education and training to 15,000 volunteers. So as I said, these volunteers actually live on the train for 2 weeks at a time, and they move on. The next set of volunteers come in, and the train, as I said, reaches the deepest areas of the country. You know, most countries, when they do start off with the trains, the movement from the central cities into the deep areas is via our train systems, and we've quite effectively used this to provide that service. So this is part of a humanitarian approach to health services, especially in areas and communities that might need services and where we don't have built up infrastructure. This is a really unique way of transferring healthcare professionals with healthcare services to areas of need. Thank you. Next slide, please. My next project is really something very close to my heart, as most people in FIP will tell you, and across South Africa and Africa. It's called Medicines 2, and Ruben did mention that. And unlike the first project where we were looking at mobilizing healthcare professionals and providing humanitarian aid directly, this is what Gemma has put as part of her slide, is the mobilizing the funds and creating awareness around issues related to pharmacy and pharmacy services. So Medicines 2 has been launched in South Africa in the last 3 or 4 weeks. As you can see, some of the media that we've got out of it. So it is really supported by the National Department of Health, supported by FIP and others. And this last week has been amazing in South Africa. A lot of people are talking about the concept of Medicines 2. Next slide, please. So what this does, it creates leadership in healthcare. It builds organization and campaigns. It's part of this humanitarian RX work from an FIP point of view. It assists in fundraising and collaboration, especially in this particular time where the WHO is also saying that the funding has dried up, and maybe there's an approach that other countries can take up as a challenge to try and support the humanitarian aid done by healthcare professionals across the world. It presents a unique opportunity for pharmacy to work collectively, prepare and resolve pharmaceutical issues pre a disaster event, almost like a preparedness program. We're talking about pandemic preparedness. This is preparedness for any type of disaster, natural or man-made. It also enables pharmacists to showcase to the public and government their unique expertise, and it allows them to apply their knowledge of medicines, logistics, procurement, and enabling high-quality medicines to be delivered to areas of need. It also enables pharmacists to provide direct relief to victims of humanitarian crisis, and I'll tell you how. In the bottom of that slide, you will see the partners here. FIP is an overseeing body around this. Pharmacists Without Borders, based in the UK, provides the back end of the office-based response, creating the website, creating the posters for you, which I will show you in a minute. Together with Medicines to Africa, the concept that was launched in Brisbane in 2023-24. Next slide, please. So the milestones in terms of Medicines too, it's really a fund collection methodology using crowdfunding. And you'll recall that we supported Medicines to Ukraine as a first project, and over 2.4 million euros was collected to acquire medicines and send it to Ukraine during this crisis period. And it's really a demand that came through the Ukrainian pharmacists themselves. Out of that, we came up with this concept of Medicines too that has been adopted by FIP, and it's really a proactive way of preparing for disaster events, and that's what's been created with Medicines too. You have an opportunity of any country in the world starting to prepare the groundwork for the supply of medicines across the world. Out of that came Medicines to Africa, because we thought that there were quite a few disaster areas that were being talked about, and maybe if we started in Africa, we could expand this to the rest of the world. And in late last year, towards the FIP conference, we realized there was a real crisis in Gaza, and this escalated into all of the countries that have become part of Medicines to supporting action in Gaza. Next slide, please. So as I said, Medicines to Africa was launched in Brisbane in 2023, and it is really a proactive campaign to try and mobilize people around the concept of donor funding towards medicines that pharmacists are in control of. It allows pharmacists to interact where medicines are needed. When Ukraine first started, there was a lot of dumping of medicines on its border post, and it actually cost more to dismantle all of that and dispose of it rather than this methodology that we're using where pharmacists are directly involved. It's really a collaborative effort across nations and across countries, and it empowers pharmacists, as I said to you before. Next slide, please. So the culmination in Cape Town at the FIP Congress in 2024, where we, during the 18 months from Brisbane all the way to Cape Town, we started to interact with countries in Africa, and we brought everyone together to Cape Town to sign this pledge of creating Medicines too within their own country and within their own framework. And you can see the Gaza operation being incorporated in at the signing ceremony. And you'll see the FIP president there, the Pharmacists Without Borders chair, Mark, together with Salah, who's led the Jordanian Pharmacy Association and made the request to include Gaza into this operation. Next slide, please. So at FIP in 2024, we had all of these countries listed there that have joined. So you in your country, wherever you are, have the opportunity to becoming part of Medicines too, just contact either the FIP office, and Ruben has provided you some emails earlier on, or myself, and my email is at the end of it, and we will start to have a conversation on how you can include your country into this massive project that we are doing. Currently, all of these countries have committed to open up their Medicines 2 campaign and support Gaza as soon as those borders open to try and sort out the issues there. Next slide, please. How this works is that these posters that you see, there's multiple posters there. The first one that you see is actually a practicing pharmacist in Gaza itself that are in the front line. We used her picture across all of those 9 countries or 11 countries that are now supporting, including the UK. You'll find these posters in the windows of pharmacies, and the scanning codes there, the QR code. So the population or the people coming in, the patients scan that code and it links them into a website, and it opens up a donor channel, and money is collected via not by the pharmacy organizations itself, but in partnership with other NGO organizations. In South Africa, we've chosen Gift of the Givers, where it's ring fence, and when we give the go-ahead, medicines are bought and sent across. So these posters in different languages will be created for you in your own country to take it out. Last slide, please. So this is the South African QR code. So if you are sitting in South Africa and scan this, it opens up that website and you can start to donate. And we've already started that process. So that's my email address there. And thank you very much. I hope that to see many more countries coming through and joining Medicines 2 as a campaign. Thank you very much. Over to you, Robert.
Dr. Moody, thank you so much for this very interesting presentation, having more or less 2 sides to it, because it's a very interesting concept in trying to get pharmacy away from the brick and mortar pharmacies to the mobile pharmacies. In your case, a train, we've seen some mobile pharmacies coming up in Ukraine. So it's a very interesting concept. Go there where the help is needed, and how to do that. And then linking it to how do you finance campaigns. So I think the Medicines 2 is a great campaign, and I'm glad that you're so active in doing it and that FIP is supporting the program, because as mentioned by the first speaker, I think funding is one of the big things. There are, of course, it's about humans doing the work, but it's also about funding them to be able to do the work. And that is, I think, I'm still reverberating from the beginning, the first presentation, that there's so much cuts to international aid and humanitarian work that it is more and more important, well, first of all, to get more support, but also to make it as efficient as possible. And I hope that this webinar is showing ways that we're trying to be as organized as possible to make the lesser and lesser funds that are there more available, or to open up new ways of funding. So thank all of the speakers very, very much for their presentations. But now we would like to go to a question and answer. We have about 10 minutes for questions and answers. I will start with the first question in the question and answers. It's from Vivek Khadke, and it says, what policy or protocol changes can integrate pharmacists more effectively into disaster response teams for humanity, I would say, sensitive medicine, or humidity sensitive medicine? It's quite a technical question. And as a student, what kind of skills and certifications should I build that NGOs or humanitarian organizations will actually have value? So it's probably for most of the speakers, maybe start with reg, but people can join in. So what do we need? What are the skills that are most valuable to deliver humanitarian aid? Yeah, Luna?
Okay. First of all, it is very important to start training and educating pharmacists since they are undergraduated. So, for instance, here in Lebanon, I have started since 2 years ago to deliver a course about health emergency response and preparedness. And these future pharmacists now, they understand how to be well prepared, what to do. They understand that pharmacists are not only dispensers, or they are community pharmacists or hospital pharmacists. They are humanitarian people, healthcare providers responsible for helping and coordinating with all other stakeholders. So this is number one. So training starting early in undergraduated. Number two, in the policies, we have to really, when we are allocating, let's say, the resources, to think about what to do for instance, for this lady who is asking about the humidity sensitive. You have to allocate money during the preparedness for, let's say, the portable refrigerator, easy way to prepare a photocell if there's no electricity. So the hospitals or other healthcare systems are well equipped with these photocells, and we can take electricity. Even if we had a problem, we'll take it directly from the sun. You have to have all the other equipments for humidity sensitive that are prepared before the crisis is coming. So this is very important. The preparedness is one of the pillars if you want to succeed during the crisis. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, Luna. And Gemma, I see you nodding, and I expect you have something to add to this. Thank you.
To be honest, it was just, Robert, I was reflecting on all of the presentations from all of the doctors who I see online, and it was so inspiring. And I think it proved a couple of things. One is literally that anyone can be a humanitarian. The skill that it takes is commitment and compassion. That's really it. That's the starting point. And I mean, I sit here, I trained mostly as a lawyer before I entered the humanitarian field. You can come from any background, you can come from any specialization, and you can be a humanitarian. And I do it for a living, but what I was so inspired about listening to my fellow panelists was that all of you do it on top of your day job, that you're integrating it into everything that you do as pharmacists, as scientists, as doctors. It's just incredible. So it actually, to answer the colleague's question about what are the skills that you look for in humanitarian work, humanitarians are doctors, they are pharmacists, they are lawyers, they are, you name it, you can be a humanitarian provided you bring that compassion and are willing to exercise your skill in service of humanity. And to enter the field, for those who are interested, there are so many different pathways. You can start as a volunteer doing the types of initiatives that you've heard about today. You can apply for online volunteer programs if you don't have the time on top of your day job, and then you can really start to chip away at it. And that's what I think most of us did to enter the humanitarian field. We started by giving more of our time to these things that we love, and eventually we do it full time. Thank you so much.
I think that's really good. The hashtag that you mentioned, Act for Humanity, it means acting for humanity, and it is not a hashtag, it's a verb. And I think I fully agree. And please, other panelists, are there somebody wants to? Because
Yeah,
Lucas, I know. Yep, sorry. No, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it's Shamia. I think
Yes,
the two big areas is, one is to realize that your qualification already trains you to deal with any type of humanitarian work, because it gives you the basic skills as a healthcare professional. The second is to have the commitment and compassion. Those are two really important components in doing humanitarian work. And of course, what Luna suggested is that there are specific training that you might require when you enter into humanitarian areas that require more specialized skill. And that could easily come through many of the projects that already exist through the FIP. There is a substantial amount of material that's coming through FIP, and you will find that on our website as well. Thanks.
Great. Thank you, Lucas. Would you like to, I see that you're back on. I think we are having a connection problem with Lucas here.
That's okay. Rob, I wanted to come in just for a second as well as before we give the floor to Mr. Subhash there, is that I've just put in the chat just around the knowledge and skills and competencies in this particular area, that FIP does have a specific competency framework to support pharmacists upskill in the area of support, humanitarian work. And it does kind of break up those knowledge and the skills into different domains, if you like, around public health services, pharmaceutical care, your professional and personal attributes, but also around organization and management. So I just put that in the chat for our listeners to just maybe check it out to support. And I think it answers a few questions in the Q&A box as well, Bob. Just to support.
Yes, exactly. I was just looking at the Q&A box, and I think in that some are very detailed. So I think those best referred to in the papers or the information provided by FIP. And I think, again, coming back, why did we organize this? We organized it because of the Humanitarian Day in 2000, to remember the people who are working on there. And it is about strengthening global solidarity and empowering communities, local communities. And it started out where help of money is drying up. What are the things that people can do, not just professionally, but also perhaps actively, but feel that change their attitude for humanity? Not everybody will be in a humanitarian section, but how best to act for humanity if you're not in a humanitarian section? How can you add? How can you contribute? What are effective ways? Is that something that any of the panelists would like to dwell upon?
Robert, I can maybe kick us off here whilst others
come in. I hoped you would.
Thank you. Look, there are so many things that we can do as individuals every single day. And I think the critical thing in the world as it is right now is that we don't feel powerless. And so there are the things that you can do with your own time and energy. You can write to your members of parliament to stress that this is an issue that you're passionate about. Someone just put in the chat box the amount of spending now going to the military. We often say it would take 1% of global military spending to fund the entire global humanitarian appeal. So we can all play a role in speaking to our politicians, no matter which country we're in, to your representatives at whichever level, to say, we want to act for humanity. We want to support people in crisis, be it in our own country or around the world. So one is that political pressure that you can exert, and that is both around funding, but also around protection, that you want to see the world protect aid workers, your colleagues on the front lines, your pharmacists who are responding like Dr. Luna and others in the midst of conflict. You want to see the world protect aid workers. And so this is a piece that can be done. It's emails, it's phone calls. It can take just a couple of minutes of your day, but it can make a big difference, because what we see right now is at a time when so many people in the world are so rightfully concerned about their own living conditions or the cost of life in their countries, that the ability to feel that compassion for others is not dwindling, but it might take a back seat. And it's important for people to know you can act every single day. So you can speak, you can write, you can call, and you can also give. And giving can be of your time. We spoke about volunteering. It was so amazing hearing Dr. Sham speak about the young pharmacists doing 2 weeks on the train in his country. You know, volunteering is giving of your time, giving of your money if it's possible, or giving of your expertise. So there are so many ways that we can all act. And I think that's a big part of our message on World Humanitarian Day. It can be so bleak to look at this world. For us, knowing that more of our colleagues are being killed than ever is so hard to process, but we cannot feel powerless in the face of that. We have to know that as individuals we can act. Thank you. Back to you.
Thank you so much for these words, because that is exactly, I think you're absolutely right. It's not feel helpless. That doesn't help the world at all. It's act at whatever level you can do. Thank you so much, Gemma, for that very inspiring, I wouldn't say talk, the inspiring of the inspiration that you're giving with that. We are almost creeping up to the end, and I think it is a lovely end, but I would like to have any of the speakers who would like to say, contribute in the last minute, please do. Lucas, would you like to have a sort of a last word? And again, Gemma, thank you so much for joining us and for your inspiration.
I want to thank for all the speakers of today for sharing the information. I would like in special to take a note for Luna's presentation. It's really great and important to see something, a country and the situation for Lebanon, how it has since the explosion and to today's situation. It brings us the feeling from the field, and this all the way to OCHA and to the others and how it goes. It's a great point to hear here today. And thank you very much, everyone who joined and listened to this webinar today.
I would like to revert that. And Dalia, would you like to have close the session?
Thank you so much, Rob, and just a special thank you from me and on behalf of FIP for all of our speakers' time and energy and inspiring words to keep us all going and acting with humanity, which I think starts with each and every single one of us. I'm delighted to have met you here and to have had you as well, and hope to see you in future events and work as well. Just to wrap up and to leave our audience with just a couple of things to think about. We do have we have a library of events, digital events freely available for everybody, so do please check them out. But also some of us are heading to Copenhagen for the annual FIP World Congress on Pharmacy and Pharmaceutical Sciences in a couple of weeks, less than that actually. So if you happen to be in the region, there's still time for you to come and meet us in purpose to be part of this huge networking opportunity at FIP. But also just for you to learn more about the themes. All of this information is on our website, and there is a special place for the humanitarian setting in our program. There are about 2 to 3 specific sessions that will address similar angles. So we do invite you to consider this. And with this, I just want to thank you all again for being with us, for attending this session. Stay well and